Wearing your hair natural is a positive statement about who you are. It's not a protest to somebody else. It's affirming you. I hope that people will be inspired by Madam Walker's story. I hope that they will see her as a complex human being and that they will want to dig more deeply, that they will want to know the details of her life. Through the years, Madam Walker has certainly become a staple of anything that has to do with Black history, women's history, and entrepreneurship. The real Annie Malone was not a light-skinned woman. Madam Walker's name gets thrown out as either the savior of Black women's hair or she's the evil devil. Madam Walker was mythologized like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, but I want to show that she was fabulous on her own. There was a period of 10 years where the conventional wisdom was Black shows don't sell overseas, therefore nobody is interested. We all draw inspiration from women whose names make the headlines and whose stories are in the history books, but often our greatest inspiration comes from our mothers, grandmothers, aunts, teachers, and friends. Madam Walker selected Indianapolis as the headquarters for her growing business more than a century ago in 1910 because of its central location and thriving Black business community. Every ethnic group has a mythology until roots. There was nothing in the popular culture to refute the paragraph in elementary school history class that said slaves picked the cotton, were happy, and life wasn't so bad. I've always been fascinated by Madam Walker's ability to use her money for political causes. I find her story so inspires people that it gives me great joy to share the story. We buy too much stuff we just don't need. We're trying to look cute for next weekend when we ought to be thinking about the next decade. There are schools that have rules against Afro puffs. They say it's distracting, but nobody is saying that about a little girl who has ponytails. There is a core of people who know and love Madam C.J.B. Walker, but there's a much larger audience who don't really know about her. I think self-made will give people a window into her life. I have lived almost 7 decades, so I've had my hair journey where I wasn't comfortable with my hair. Today, there's no excuse for not learning how to get our financial houses in order. Some of us close our eyes, take a deep breath, and say a prayer when it comes to managing our finances. Du Bois, my intellectual hero, had written an ode of Madam. Praising her, I began to see Madam Walker beyond the definitions others had given her. And mothers and daughters, mothers need to help their daughters love their hair, and some mothers know how to do this, and some mothers help their daughters love their hair. Many people have told me that once they learn of Madam Walker's accomplishments, they are surprised, even embarrassed, that they have never heard of her, but they shouldn't be. Her extraordinary story was simply omitted from the history books. For all my life, I've been trying to tell Madam's story, and really it's a labor of love just to make sure people know about her and the empowerment she gave to other women. God puts pack rats together with non-pack rats. As one of the pioneers of modern hair care and cosmetics, Madam Walker is still an inspiration to a lot of people going into the business. LELIA Walker did not subsidize specific writers, but she provided a place for all kinds of people to gather. She was one of the few Blacks who had the money to allow her to entertain in the large scale. Madam Walker was a woman who transformed herself in a very American, rags to riches way. Women of African descent, since the beginning of time, have altered their hair, decorated it, and used it to designate status. The saying was that Madam Walker made the money, and her daughter, my great-grandmother, spent it. I've found that once people are introduced to Madam Walker's story, they are inspired but also perplexed about why she was omitted from their history lessons. If you wear your hair straight or natural, it's all fine with me. It doesn't mean that you aren't politically conscious or that you don't have good thoughts about progress. I'd seen how Green Book had been a box office hit, but left pianist Don Shirley's family feeling betrayed because his life and relationships had been distorted. I began to discover that, in addition to her stunning achievements, there were flaws, as there would be in any person's life. I wanted to tell Madam's story in an honest, frank way. It's very hard to be a kid especially in a predominantly white school or white town where other people want to police your body and hair. I love people who have really long locks. I love how they can go in different directions or pile it up into a big crown on the head. I think a lot of times the historical piece is often a way to comment on the present. For some people, success is a zero-sum game. They think that if they push other people out of the way, fewer people can compete with them. That's one way of seeing the world. It's dog eat dog. It's sadly always going to be there. For many years, Madam Walker was just a little footnote in history. As a woman who made hair care products, she was really consigned to something trivial. We live in a culture where European beauty standards are dominant. She used her wealth and philanthropy to contribute to black schools and colleges. She gave the largest gift the NOC had ever received to its anti-lynching fund. Madam Walker's life was one of transformation and reinvention. Don't sit around and wait for the opportunities to come. You have to get up and make those opportunities come. Alelia Perry Bundles, born June 7, 1952, Alelia grew up in Indianapolis in a family of civic-minded business executives. She was named after her great-grandmother Alelia Walker 1885191, a central figure of the Harlem Renaissance and daughter of entrepreneur Madam C. J. Walker. Alelia mother, Alelia May Perry Bundles, 19281976, Vice President of the Madam C. J. Walker Manufacturing Company and active in local and state Democratic politics. Also served as a member of the Washington Township School Board and was a fiscal administrator with the City of Indianapolis. Her father, S. Henry Bundles JRB, 1927-2019, became president of Summit Laboratories, another haircare manufacturer. In 1957, after having worked briefly with the Walker Company, she served as an Indianapolis 500 Festival director for many years and was a board member of the Indianapolis Convention and Visitors Bureau. She was the founding president of the Center for Leadership Development, a youth enrichment organization in Indianapolis. Bundles graduated in 1970 in the top 5% of her class from North Central High School, where she was co-editor of the Northern Lights, vice president of Student Council and co-chair and founder of the Human Relations Council, which addressed racial issues in a student population less than 10% Black. In 1970, Bundles graduated magna cum laude from Harvard and Radcliffe Colleges. When women admitted to Radcliffe attended classes beside male students at Harvard and received a joint diploma. She was inducted into Harvard's Alpha Iota chapter of Phi Beta Kappa. Bundles received a master's degree from the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism in 1976. Alelia Perry Bundles is an American journalist, news producer and author, known for her 2001 biography of her great-great-grandmother, Madam C. J. Walker.